Hi folks, it's Andy. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We've got some fantastic questions for you today in today's Kendo rant. So we'll jump into these fantastic questions in just a moment. But before we do, don't forget, like, share, subscribe. When you hit subscribe, a little bell appears. That's the Kendo bell. You ring that bell, you instantly start getting better at Kendo. So make sure you ring the Kendo bell. Most importantly, if you do like the videos that I am producing, whether it's Kendo rant like this every week, I have the series on top level players where I introduce them, so you can go away and do your own Mitori Geiko focused around players that you like, or of course the instructional content that I put out as well. I've got more of that on the way soon. Don't forget to support us by shopping at kendostar.com. That's my website, of course, that provides amazing, wonderful, fantastic, brilliant, earth-shatteringly amazing Kendo equipment. Now, of course, I would say that. If you don't believe me, check out our Trustpilot reviews, because, yeah, we're super high rated on that as well. Right, let's get into this. Hi, Andy. My club doesn't do gradings, and I'm finding it hard to know where I'm at. And it's had an effect on me, and I'm aiming for something, if that makes sense. I know grades are not the be-all and end-all, and I'm a bit wary of approaching my sensei, as I'm still ungraded, and I feel asking to grade is wrong if I haven't been approached about it. And going straight into first Q grading with no prior grading experience might be a huge hill to climb. Is there something you've come across, and do you have any pointers? Yeah, I mean, most clubs, especially in the UK, they don't necessarily do internal gradings. But look, no, you're right. Grading isn't at all the be all and end all, but it is important. It is something that's an important aspect of Kendo, and you definitely should participate in it. You are missing out a massive part of Kendo if you don't participate in gradings. The same goes for Shiai, of course. Look, I don't think it's a problem for you to talk to your sensei about it, though. You don't have to go up to him and be like, "Hey, man, why aren't I doing any gradings?" Like, sort of thing. You don't have to be like that. Just talk to them and say, "Oh, look, I just wondered what the sort of score was with grading, and I understand the first one is first Q. What do I need to work on to sort of get towards that? Because that's a bit of a target of mine at the minute." And I just say that and see how they respond. If they're sort of like, yeah, I think we've got a little bit of work to do before we look at that, then great. At least you got some feedback. In a way, that's kind of the feedback that you're looking for, isn't it? And you can sort of maybe sort of go into that a bit further and say, okay, well, what should I work on? What do I need to do to get to the level where I'm going to be able to pass the first Q? I wouldn't worry too much about going straight to first Q with no prior grading experience. Loads of people do that. It's totally normal. It's not that big a deal. It'll feel like it at the time, and it did for me when I did my first Q. I'm not trying to belittle the experience, because I remember it myself. But it is, it is. It's easier than you imagine. All right, if you can make strikes with Fumikomi, then you'll pass first Q. All right, but you have to be able to make strikes in general with Fumikomi, or at least with Kentai no Ichi. All right. Next one, do you feel that more international competitions need to happen? Europe has the Euros, at least. But us down south only compete in the Worlds, so don't really have anything else internationally. What are your thoughts regarding expansion? Yeah, I mean, obviously more events would be great. Of course they would, especially when things get a little bit more back to normal, and events like that can happen. You say down south, I'm assuming you mean sort of Australia, New Zealand way. There used to be a I don't know if it was annual or not, but there used to be a sort of Australia, New Zealand inter championship. I do remember that. But yeah, I mean, more of those sort of tournaments would be great, but you know, it needs Kendo to be a bit more popular, and it needs more people that are willing to organize those sort of tournaments. Organizing tournaments like that, it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes money. So, you know, it needs somebody with the impetus to do it. But yeah, if you're up, you know, if people are up for that, I definitely think it's a good idea. I think it would be good for everybody. One of the things we lack outside of Japan is not enough competition experience. And because of that, competition gets a little bit vilified, as if it's some sort of separate thing that should be treated separately, and sort of, yeah, you know. I think part of that is because of people's lack of exposure to it. It's not just seen as a normal part of Kendo. Okay, next one. Hi, Andy Sensei. From time to time, I hear Kendoka answering with osu instead of hai. For some odd reason, no one seems to know I yet. I know it's common in some martial arts, but considered rude in others. How is it usually in Japanese Kendo dojos? Okay, so the term osu it's used a lot in karate, but not really in Kendo. There's a couple of sort of meanings for it. It basically comes around mostly. I think it originally came from like the Japanese Imperial Navy or something. I sort of quickly Googled it, and it's still sort of used in karate as a sort of affirmative. So yeah, but we don't use it in Kendo at all. So I recommend not doing. Yeah, especially if you're in Japan, I wouldn't use it. It can come across as rude actually, especially if people don't really understand the context of what you're saying. In terms of iye, iye is like no, it means no. But like in Japanese society, they don't say it very often. The sort of culture and the society is structured in a way where the language, they don't often use sort of hard negative words like that, like no. So there isn't often a time in Kendo where you would say no anyway, especially to a sensei. But if you just don't hear it very often. All right. I mean, it's not absolute. Of course, there's times. But you know, I wouldn't worry about going around saying yeah either. But yeah. Just stick to height. Next one. I have some female students both in Kendo and Iaido who are well endowed in the chest region. Okay. They've complained that the men movement is painful at times and that their large chest gets in the way of being able to execute a proper strike. Would you or anyone else who's had personal experience with the issues or has taught students with the issues, please share your insight. Thank you. So look, yeah, obviously I don't have personal experience with that issue, but and I noticed somebody commented on this already in the Kendo Show Early Access group and recommended a good sort of sports bra. So that's something that I've heard is good. There's no reason it should be painful, of course. And I'm assuming you mean like the furikaburi, when they raise their arms, maybe the sort of body's getting in the way. Which I get it, I understand that. In which case, it's got to be sort of considered, hasn't it? So that it's not painful. But there's plenty of people in that situation that are very good at Kendo. So, there's definitely considerations to be made, but also to some extent, there's sort of gonna have to be improvements on the part of the people that are actually doing it as well. They're gonna have to figure out how to do it right without it causing them pain. If it's causing them pain, the chances are they're probably not doing it properly. So yeah. Dear Andy, you talked about the overall shinai length last time. However, after nearly 2 decades of Kendo, I still don't understand how to get a new Tsukagawa in my preferred length. Somehow I've mostly managed to have an old one that I could transfer to a new shinai in case a new Tsukagawa was too short. So it depends what your preferred Tsukagawa length is. They're pretty standardized for the most part. But there are a few different lengths. But they don't make super long ones. We have a shinai with the extra long one, the Tenkafubu. So I'd suggest checking that out. But the problem is every now and again, maybe twice a year, somebody asks me for a longer than standard Skagawa. Now, by virtue of the fact that they've got to be produced in bulk, it just doesn't. The market doesn't warrant us, not just us, but any Kendo supplier making Skagawa that are exceptionally long. So it really depends on what it is that you require. Feel free to drop us an email, mail@kendostar.com, let us know what the sort of length of the Skagawa is that you want, and we'll see what we can offer. But yeah, obviously they tend to stretch a little bit over time as well, so that's why you're probably finding sort of more luck with an older one. The thing is there's a bit of a trend towards shorter ones these days. I don't particularly like the idea of super short Skagawa myself. See if I can find a Shinai here that's this one. This is they do this sort of thing where you hold it like that and that can sort of measure the length, but really people often do it to the inside there, but it's anywhere between here and the bottom of your elbow could be suitable for you. For me, this particular one's a tad short for my preference. Having said that, I don't actually what do you say? I don't often care about it that much. They're probably all different lengths, my Shinai. I don't mind it that much. It's only like doing a difference of doing this. I used to when I was younger. I used to really like be picky about Shinai, but like these days, if it's got a good balance, that's cool. Probably all my Shinai have got different Skagawa lengths. I think part of the problem is some people want too short Skagawa. I know this isn't about your question, but it's often surrounded with issues with the kamae rather than the Shinai itself, and people are sort of glossing over that to get and you're sort of using the Shinai as a crutch. So like they're trying to keep the shoulders too square when the right shoulder should be in front a little bit. So they're trying to keep the shoulders too square, and of course because your arms are the same length, they then want a shorter Skagawa so that they can do that, when probably they'd be better off fixing their kamae. But that's just what I think. Like I say, I'm not that fussy over it anymore. I don't like them if they're too short, but like I say, mine are probably all different lengths. Hi Andy, I hope you and the family are well. Yes, thank you. I'm 6th Q, and when I do suriashi backwards, particularly with a cut during kirikaishi and suburi, I seem to struggle with balance. Is there a technique you could suggest to help me improve my kirikaishi? Yes, suburi. Doing suburi. More of it. And practicing ashisabaki. At my dojo, we tend to practice ashisabaki at the start of every class, not with swinging the shinai, just in the kamae. And you have to focus on moving your lower body, and then you add in using the shinai as well, and then that has to unify together. But it's partly practice, but it's really suburi that's gonna fix it for you. Check out the Zero to Shodan series video that I've done, and I've talked about men strikes both going forward and backwards, and kirikaishi as well. And just try and get that sort of image in your mind of what it's supposed to look like when it's all unified together, and then try to emulate that when you're back at the dojo. I'm sure you'll do fine. But at the same time, it is tough. It's not something you can expect to just do from day one. All right, so give it some more practice. Next one. Hi Andy, I have a technical question. I've been shimpanning for a bunch of university students and found one player has a very cheap defensive tactic that he often uses during Shiai Geiko. Just before I carry on reading this, cheap defensive tactics don't work. You lose the Shiai if you do them. Here's the scenario. Kenshi A and B are at Toma, holding the tight Chudan. A gets in close, exerting semi, and B lowers his Kensen to Gedan in response. A took the opportunity and strikes men while B is attempting to retreat. After being hit in the men, B quickly raises the Kensen towards A's Skidare, but A's momentum is in full effect, driving the B's Kensen under the A's men and towards his throat, forcefully stopping his Ki forward momentum. My question is, in this scenario, will A be awarded Ippon? Or he won't get Ippon, but B will get Hansoku for the movement similar to Mukaizuki. Not entirely sure if it counts as Mukaizuki. Or will nothing happen as the Ippon effectively dispelled and Kenshi B gets away with this kind of tactic? These kinds of scenarios sparks a lot of debate amongst seniors about what's considered dirty but borderline legal during Shiai, and most of us are unsure of what should be done about it. As always, I appreciate your answers to these questions. I love your Borgers, by the way, especially the victory sets. I hope you release more options under that line. Okay. So what you're talking about is one guy hits men. One person drops the Shinai to Gedan. The other person hits men. As the other person hits men, the other person lifts the Shinai and rams it under their men, which obviously hits them in the throat and might sort of stop their voice. Listen, in that situation, if this guy hits men and it hits the men, that's Ippon. That's Ippon. You should give that Ippon. Simple as that. There's no reason why you shouldn't. No reason at all why you shouldn't. Like, yeah, he couldn't do the Ki, but then the guy shoved his Shinai in his throat, but that's after he got hit. All right, provided, of course, that the strike was made originally, obviously with the intention with the shout and with, you know, everything else. But I'd even be a bit flexible on the criteria of Yuko Datotsu in the way of, because the other guys sort of, if they're sort of retreating, as you said, this way, and then I wouldn't go as far as to punish him for Mukaizuki. That's not quite what Mukaizuki is. So Mukaizuki would be, instead of going this way, it'd be as they come in, sort of ramming it up literally this way. Whereas it doesn't seem to be that. It's like roar and then lifting it that way to try and stop them coming in. But no, you definitely give. Even if they weren't doing this Gedan stuff, right? Say they stayed in Chudan, whereas the other guy came in, they started to step back, and that men hit as they were going backwards, and they just skewed themselves on the Kensen. I'd still give that Ippon because they still sort of broken them with the Senate. So yeah, it's Ippon for player A. That's what you should do, and then player B will soon stop doing it. It's like I say, that sort of trick, it loses your CI, it loses your matches. I mean, it's effectively saying, like, say somebody does you know, an attack, and then you trip them up. You know, does that cancel their attack because they couldn't do Zanshin? No, it doesn't. You know, their Zanshin was forcefully, abruptly interrupted, wasn't it, by your actions? So, but the original strike itself was made at the good opportunity and fulfilled the criteria. So, lift the flag. Next one. Hi Andy, I'm hoping to return to Kendo after taking a break for 5 years due to work commitments. Great. Do you have any recommendations for getting back in shape for Kendo? Kendo fitness seems to be quite different to the kind of fitness you get training cardio weightlifting, but I'd like to get as fit as possible in the next few months before the dojo opens up again. Thanks. Love the show. Great. Thank you. Great. Well, welcome back to Kendo. The thing is there isn't a lot you can do specifically for Kendo. You could start doing some Suburi again. I think that would help. Like if you watch some of my videos, there's how to do Suburi at home. And if you do some of the Suburi long stuff that we've done, and I've also done some online Keikos in the past, which the recordings are up on the channel as well. Do some of them. Get used to swinging the Shinai again. Because once you've done like a load of Suburi, like out of nowhere, you'll start to get aches and pains in your shoulders and back. So get yourself used to swinging the Shinai again. Other stuff, general fitness stuff, will definitely help overall. Make sure you warm up and stretch, and then I recommend doing something like that. I definitely think it will help. And is it possible to get a Yamato, not bamboo Kiji-Do? So Yamato is a brand of plastic door. So what you're really asking is it possible to get a Kiji-Do, which is not bamboo? So Kiji-Do is a unpainted or unlacquered bamboo door. So when they make a bamboo door, they make it out of the bamboo slats. Then they bind it with a layer of canvas. That's the Kiji. And then they put a layer of rawhide over it, and then normally they would then paint that up with gloss black urushi with several layers. But sometimes you can get the door. Well, a Kiji-Do is that before it's been painted. I've got one myself, love it very much. No, you can't get a synthetic version. You can't. You can get some door that look a bit like it. I've got a bright yellow one that looks a bit like one, but it's a synthetic version. But no, they don't make a synthetic version of Kiji-Do, I'm afraid. Hi Andy, due to a long-term injury, I find it difficult to go through after a cut with Zanshin. Before the COVID, I was working on a cut into Tayatari strategy. As we're unable to do Tayatari or Subazeri for the foreseeable future, are there any other methods of finishing a cut with good Zanshin I could try? Yes. So look, going through, like where you go, man, like this, and the guys behind you, that's not Zanshin, all right? That's wrong. Shouldn't do that, all right? Also, if you hit men, and the men hits, you know, man, and then you do Tayatari, then that's not Zanshin either, all right? That's like cancelling out. It's like, my men wasn't good enough, so I'm going to do Tayatari. What you have to do is, you do men, and they're not going to move out the way, not in a realistic situation. You do men, you go forward, man, like this, and then you bump into them. It's a bit like Tayatari, but it's not Tayatari, yeah? Man, you bump into them, and then you go backwards like you're doing Hikiwaza, like if you watch the video I did about Zanshin. So you have to come into contact with them briefly. But that's what happens in Kendo. And, you know, everywhere, I think that's basically accepted now, even with the whole situation with the COVIDs, like that. You know, like if you look at the temporary rules that Japan have put out for Shiai, so that they can do some Shiai despite the pandemic, that doesn't, you know, that accepts that Tayatari or brief close contact with each other is inevitable. Of course, extended Subzeri is not. That's avoidable, but there's, you know, you're gonna have to. It's not really much different to when you go past them. If when you're doing your Kihon, you're man, and you go past, you know, there's a brief closing of the different distance there, and that's the same, and I think that's the way you need to do it. Tayatari and Subazeri are of course different things. So yeah, I'm not sure that we can remove Tayatari from Kendo. So I don't think that that's going to happen. Not without turning it into something totally different. And then we get onto the same conversation that we've been having about the Olympics. But you know, yeah, Subazeri, I understand that's not going to. That's probably something we're going to have to think about for a little while. But in terms of, yeah, I think that's what you need to do. Okay. Hi Andy, last week there was a question regarding the warm-up routine chant ich ni sore. I think it's something that they chant in this video here, and then there's the link to a video. We've done that kind of warm-up on some occasion. Maybe something comes to your mind about that. So a lot of people commented on the question from last week about someone that had an unusual warm-up routine where they sort of chanted it's ni, so, and then everyone else shouted sore, I mean, this sort of thing, and a lot of people commented on it because I was like, no idea, never seen any or heard anything like that. And so, a lot of people have commented saying that it's from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, Keicho. Now that's why I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about those guys or how they train. I've only been to Tokyo twice, so on reasonably brief trips. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it comes from Keicho, the Tokyo Police. They've got a few things that they do a bit differently to everybody else. So yeah, that's what it is. Great, cool, cool. I'm not sure it's what makes them really strong at Kendo though, but okay, cool. I think it's something that they do across the police force, by the way. I don't think it's just the Kendo team that does it. I think the whole police force does it because, you know, effectively it's like a step down from the military, isn't it? The way they sort of operate that place. Next one, we have a couple of younger members who struggle to pull their men himo tight enough, so usually an adult club member helps them out during men's skit. If they come with us to a seminar, would it be rude or frowned upon for us to get up out of the line and go and help them with their gear? Right, so you've got some younger members that struggle to pull their men himo tight enough. Now, I asked you on this how old they were, and you said 11 and 13. That's the same age as my own kids. Right. 8-year-olds can pull their men tight enough. Okay? They need more practice of how to put their men on and to pull it tight enough. Okay? I can't think of a club in Japan that would accept 8-year-olds that can't tie their own men. All right? I don't think anywhere would find that acceptable. Any teachers would find that acceptable. It's not difficult. It just needs practice. So yeah, I would probably, if I was at a seminar and there was like an 11-year-old that couldn't tie their own men, then probably they're not ready to come to the seminar, in my opinion. There's no reason why they can't tie their own men, none whatsoever. They just need to practice by themselves at home. If they were like 6 or even 7, I'd be more, I could understand it. All right, 6 and 7, yeah, but 8 or 9, no, you got to be able to do that now. So there's no reason at all why you can't. If you, this is going to be controversial, right? But if you keep doing it for them, they're never going to learn to do it, and that's going to be a pattern that emerges throughout their Kendo. All right. So if you want them to get good at Kendo, the first thing they've got to do is learn to tie their own men. All right. They have to carry their own Borg as well. Make sure they're doing that. Grinds my gears that when you see people carrying Borg for kids. Anyway, hi Andy, weird questions today. Are the stitching rows in a Menfton Space Mine machine? I see some Borg sets where the rows are very precise and parallel, and others where they kind of waver. B, I practice in a university dojo that's mainly beginners. I'm also a beginner. We have lesson 4 Mudansha, and they cannot attend. I think you might mean Yudansha, not Mudansha. But anyway, cannot attend every practice, maybe. So my question is, how can I tell if I'm using proper tenuity with our Motodachis, who are also unranked in Q grades? I think most of us don't know what proper strike is supposed to feel like on the receiving end. So I think it's hard to give feedback. Additionally, a lot of people wear kote pads, which might lead to them to approve strikes that are normally too heavy. Yeah, that's definitely a risk. So first part of the question about the stitching, the spacing, it depends. Sometimes they're done by a machine, and sometimes they're done freehand. When you see them done freehand, I've seen people like boast saying like, "Oh, our Borgo is done freehand. We don't even use a spacer." And then you look at it, and they're all like different. It's like, okay, great. Like, no. For the most part, there's a mechanical spacer, so they can sort of lock it in the right intervals. All right. In terms of the situation at your club, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It is a difficult one. You need to try and get some outside feedback. So like you need to try and travel and practice with another dojo or somewhere where there's some higher grades, or try and get in touch with somebody who could come and visit you. And yeah, there is an issue there if everyone's wearing the kote pads. It's like, well, you shouldn't need a kote pad to practice Kendo, right? Unless there's a specific reason. Yeah. Now, I know the reason they exist is because it's unavoidable sometimes. Some people just don't get it and aren't willing to listen, and they still smash away at the kote. But like if there's a handful of you and you're trying to learn together, like starting from the position of having kote pads isn't going to help you develop the correct technique, all right? So I'm not saying don't wear them. I'm just saying just bear it in mind. You need to be accurate, not powerful. And then the other thing you can do, the only other thing you can do is try and learn from Mitori Geiko. So watch what you're doing, record what you're doing, and then watch what people who are doing it right are doing, and compare it to that, and try and emulate it. It's the only real way without having some kind of outside sort of help. Yeah. Which is obviously the best thing. You know, the best thing is if you can even if you can like arrange as a club, like to do a trip out to the next nearest club that's got a sensei, and then maybe ask for their advice on what you should work with, in your sort of in the meantime. That's probably what I'd recommend the most. That's it. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, ring the Kendo bell to get better at Kendo, and most importantly, shop at Kendo Star. See you all next time. Bye bye.